ice.
Hi everyone, whoever's watching this, my name is Christina, and you will find this video on different platforms, but if you just so happen to be on Jack of All Talks, thank you so much for supporting, and welcome. Today we're just going to ask each other a bunch of, well, I have all the questions. We're going to ask each other some very thought-intriguing questions. That being said, some of them are more ridiculous than others, but the whole purpose of today is to ask ourselves thought-provoking questions. We're going to sit down and ask each other questions because why not? And these questions may provoke you to ask yourself, am I happy with the current circumstances of my life, or should I just end it all right here? If you find yourself thinking about stuff like that, don't worry. We have the medicine for you. Just wait to see. To start it off, my question would be, what is the greatest accomplishment of your life? We want to start on a good note.
This current phase right now. I prayed for a long time for this.
Elaborate.
Like the apartment, the job in my career. You know, I just finished furnishing my apartment. It's missing some like small touches. You know, I have a car that doesn't have engine light on, or I don't know. This phase right now, like, don't get me wrong, it's not perfect because I wish my job was a little bit different. We talked about that.
Sure, right.
Financially, I wish I was, rap.
You smacked that. You smacked that right there.
I was daydreaming.
Oh, wow.
Yes, a little bit more raps, but like, this is still an answered prayer.
Oh, the greatest accomplishment of my life?
Oof.
Listening to my inner self.
Okay, a little more detail on that.
Trusting my inner voice, that inner whisper that be gnawing at me when my like heart starts to sink and I think of like why I'm like stressed or feel anxious about something.
Right.
And answering that voice like, something's not right. You don't have to put yourself in harm's way to know that God is real and that you're protected.
Right. For me, my greatest accomplishment is just liking myself. I spent a lot of time, and excuse my voice, I'm supposed to be in bed by like 10. When it's past that time, I start speaking with my morning voice. That's just how my body has robotically programmed itself to happen. I could change it if it's necessary. Even then, it's still not that deep. It's just deeper than usual.
Christine.
But yes, liking myself simply is my biggest accomplishment. I was raised to think that I was too much. I was raised to think a lot of things about myself that would make me feel like a burden in the presence of my friends, the presence of my family, presence of anybody I actually wanted to be around. And I found myself apologizing just for being me, apologizing just for existing. And I'm still working on that because I still apologize a lot for shit I don't need to apologize for. But nowadays it's like, you know what? This is exactly who you are. If you're too much for this person, that doesn't mean you need to dial down your personality. You're just not meant to be with this person.
Right.
I've been around people that made me feel like, realistically, you are a lot. Realistically, I am able to handle more than that from you. So it's like, all of my energy is respected, adored, and admired from people that are around me, my family and stuff. So, spending time with myself now, not being bothered by people's perception of me for the most part, is my greatest accomplishment. I'm really proud of that. Next question is, what does love feel like for you? How would you describe it? Cloud.
That's a really good question. That's a big
Beautiful
question.
question.
For me, love is like a block of ice. And to explain it better, like sometimes it'd be really hot outside and you get a cup of water with a block of ice, and that is the most refreshing thing you can have in your life. Sometimes you get a slushie, and as you're eating a slushie, you crunch into a block of ice and get a brain freeze. It's just too much for you. But the block of ice does what it's supposed to. It nourishes you in a certain way. And if you're not necessarily aware of the block of ice, if you're not prepared for the block of ice, it could hurt you. The brain freeze. I think the block of ice melts perfectly fine at its own pace. Depending on who you are, block of ice might melt slower or faster. And when it's melting, there's nothing you can do to stop it unless you freeze it and put it outside of the vicinity. Like when you start to fall in love with something, you can't stop that. You could try your best, you can put your feelings in the freezer, you can do whatever you want, you cannot stop it. Once the block of ice starts melting, there is no stopping it. The water is going to keep pouring out no matter how much you want to change it. The only circumstance I would say is you want to make sure you're prepared for when it starts melting. It's a beautiful thing indeed. It's refreshing, it's necessary, it's needed, but sometimes you're not ready for it. Sometimes you crunch it and it gives you a toothache. And for all these times, love is pain and love is good. That's the only thing I got for it. Not always though. We don't need to suffer for love. Always.
Why is that love is nice, but love is also
Yeah, love is pain, but like love is good. You know?
I would add
Why is it pain?
I'd say like
the brain
pain in the
That's the brain
like
freeze.
that's the kind of pain I think like love is like more like a pain in the ass than like suffer. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't like associating love with suffer. Of course, there are things you're willing to do for somebody you love that can put you in a position to suffer. But I'd like to think about it like what a pain in the ass. You know, because that's a lighter tone. The things I do for love. I think the only pain that should come with it is what a pain in the ass. I miss you so much because you live far away. What a pain in the ass.
Can I ask a question there?
Of course.
So, how far are you willing to go for the pain in the ass?
Very far.
You
Very
personally, or like, should we?
Personally, I can't tell people how far they should be willing to go. Personally, for me, once I love a person, I'm on that person. Period. I don't need anybody else like that person. That person is enough.
Okay.
That being said, anything I can do to help the person, anything I can do to bring a smile to that person's face, I will do it.
Okay.
That's just what it is. But yeah, like stuff like that, you know, it's work, it's labor, but at the end of the day, it's like I would do it again and again and again and again and again. There's nothing stopping me from doing that.
Classic.
That's it. Simple. That's how I think that's how it should be.
Personally, at least from like the experiences, I think love is patience in a way. You gotta take the time to understand your partner. You gotta not be afraid to ask questions to better understand your partner.
Fair.
But it's also like, I think to me what was one of the most important aspects in a romantic love is loving yourself first and understanding yourself first. Because I always say this, like if you don't know who you are and you let someone you love define you, you become whoever that person sees you as. Yeah, that person wants you to be. So like being in a healthy relationship, I love the aspect of individuality with togetherness. So for me, love looks like a merge without a dependence. Does that make sense? So it's like I love that idea of like, you know, of merging. Like it's like two things that'll merge, like coffee and cream, and of course once you start merging, you can't really separate it. But also like, if you just want to just chug black coffee, it's still an option. If you low weed, you just want to chug creamer, do what you gotta do, and nobody's gonna judge you.
The union you build with the person you love is like, it's a manifestation of that. You don't lose yourself in it. You still have your own core character. I am powerful. I am better than I could be. Like, I am better than when we are separate because together we are love.
We are love, right. And it's like, there's something beautiful about being able to be on your own. Like, I remember I talk about that a lot. One way I always know I'm my best self is when I love my own presence again, just spending time with myself. But I also know I'm even a better person when my partner's in town and we're just spending time together. Even if that means like we're both reading a book and like on the couch next to each other, but like we're all cuddled up because we're growing ourselves individually, but also in each other's space. So it's like it's still merging that foundation.
What was the question?
The question was, what does love feel like for you and how would you describe it?
I use so many words to describe it, but I feel like it makes me like comfortable, and I feel like okay to be myself or just let loose or just say something without feeling like, oh, they gonna use that against me, or is that gonna work against me?
That's a feeling.
Just being around somebody who's pure like that. And just straightforward. I don't have to beat around the bush or like nothing. There's no clutter in my mind.
Right.
If I am thinking about something, it's because it hasn't been resolved. Or,
So you feel like you can think out loud to them.
right. That kind of comfort. If worse were to come to worse, this is somebody that will always be in my life.
Interesting. So do you feel like you found that?
I have that kind of love with my sister.
Oh yeah, for sure. You
Like
don't
she tell it to me straight, but it's like I know it's not coming from a malicious place. It might be a little brutal, but you know,
no one's gonna tell you. We're done. We tell you.
Right. But you know, I feel comfortable to like say what I want to say, but also like I know the feedback that I'm getting back is like, okay, this person cares about me. There's a method to this madness. Like I don't have to question like your intention. In my opinion, that's love. How do you transition from alone to together? Like you said, you're cool with being by yourself and then being with your partner. You gotta go. That's like a state change.
Yeah, it's not a change. I'm not saying that you have to leave the aloneness to be together. That's the difference with people who don't know how to be with other people. There was a point where I was unhealthily in a way only comfortable alone, which is something like she called me out of. Like there are people around me, you have a support system, trust that.
Right.
But now I said there's a difference between liking to be alone versus choosing to be alone as a like defense mechanism to like not get hurt. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah.
see.
So perhaps rather than
deep.
change, you would just say addition.
You're adding.
So it's
Yes.
like I will read a book by myself and have a good time. But if my partner comes here, we can read a book and have a good time. You know what I'm saying? Like if he's not here, it's like I'm okay. But if he's here, even better.
Even better, sure.
yeah.
The more the merrier. I love that.
And
That's what it
even
is.
that example specifically, like my partner and I, we actually love to read together. You know, and one of the things I find sexy is when he reads to me and I read to him.
Sexy.
Yeah.
This is a PG-13. I can't wait for this next question. I think you guys might like this one a lot. If we could pull your layers down to your purest essence, what would we find?
Does it have to be tangible? It could be anything. What do you mean? Well,
You want to answer then to kind of get
I'll answer.
Go ahead.
If my layers could be pulled back to my purest essence, you'd find a child. You'd find a very happy child.
You know, I see that.
Yeah, you'd find a very happy little girl who's a spoiled brat. That's what you'd find. You'd find like mommy, daddy, or like friend. They're like constantly playing.
But you know
energetic
she's in
as
the
hell.
room, and you want to have her in the room. And when she leaves the room, she's not.
That's
in the
what she
room.
is. She's
the
not
child
shy.
everybody
She's not
wants to
shy.
babysit.
Yeah, she's not shy. She's really friendly. But the biggest thing about her is that her eyes are so big. She sees so much. She sees so much. And that's the essence that actually keeps me going forward, because she's like, let's get our own apartment. Let's do this. Let's do that. And with her, it's like, she doesn't understand responsibilities.
Sure.
She doesn't understand the negativity of the world. All she knows is that we have the resources. Let's do it. So, she's dope. She's me.
Good
So,
for you.
yeah.
That's great. That's great that you even said that like that, because she's just doing it. You know, it's like, what's the alternative if she were not who she is? You know, who else? And some people don't ever, and they think about it, but it's like, before you know it, you're already at the end.
Yeah.
And now you're thinking of all the moments that she could have did, you know, but you're doing it. And I can respect that, like, grand scheme, but also, like, bringing it down to what you said, like, her eyes are so big, that's kind of deep, you know?
She's observant.
Observant, being that fly on the wall. You know, nobody knows what's going on up here other than you. You know, you play it back when you actually talk to people, but when your mouth is closed and you're just looking, people don't know what you're seeing.
It hurts double when, like, you're like, good, awful. Like, it's like, because you really try to see the best in people, and it's like, you did me dirty. In a sense, it's so heavy for me, because it's just a constant reminder of this inner child is who I was before innocence was taken away.
I understand.
So it's like, fuck. She's silly as hell. And the thing is, she's so important because for a couple of years, she was gone. She was completely gone. When innocence was taken away, she disappeared completely. And I found her back in high school. And she made a showcase in my adulthood and ruined my life. But no, I'm glad she's back. I'm really glad she's back because it's so important that she's back. But it's like now we're experiencing together everything she should have experienced when she turned 8, when she turned 9, when she turned 10. But the inner child thing is like, when she came back, she didn't come back without an apology. I had to apologize to her because at a certain time of my life, she stopped being a priority, and I had to create something else to push past the stuff that was happening to me.
Right.
I had to create a completely different personality. Not personality per se. Like, I had to protect myself from pain. And by doing that, I think I locked her away for some time. Because I blamed her for a lot of stuff. If you weren't so stupid, this would have never happened. If you weren't so childish, this would have never happened. If you weren't so dumb. And it's like, after years of her hiding, when she finally came back out, I had to apologize for everything she experienced, and every day she was locked away. And because of all that time she spent locked away, I'm supposing we're just gonna spend the rest of our lives together. I don't think I'll ever grow out of her because nobody understands me as well as she does.
Right.
Because it happened to her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I've gone very far from not wanting to be called childish or not liking to be called silly, like completely like, no, I'm not, even though it's clearly in my nature, like I'm a silly, goofy person, and that's all her shining through me. Yeah. Right. But today it's like, I know that this is important. When I'm making jokes that I'm laughing about, when I'm being stupid, when I'm being childish, like for funs and shits and giggles, I need that. I'm happy about that. I deserve that. I didn't get that for a solid 10 years. So no one's gonna stop me from expressing that now.
Right. Not at all. I just think it's just incredible having this level of conversation with you and this depth of a conversation.
What I kept thinking of was healer and explorer.
Ooh.
Like if it could be all stripped down, I think at the end of the day.
If you had to pick one, which one would it be? Yeah.
The first one, I'm gonna be honest with myself. The first one that came to my mind was healer, but I would have wanted it to be explorer. Because that's the one I feel like I need to find more courage to do more.
Dude, you're like a mage. If you're like playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a very important role. Just to prove how healers are beneficial. If you're ever playing Dungeons and Dragons, or any game of that sort where you have, warriors and you have healers, when you're playing against each other, your enemies will probably try to kill your healers first because that's how important they are.
Wow.
If they get rid of them first, when your team starts to die out, they're gone. That's it. Yeah. So that's how important the role is. If you're playing with a group of people, it's like, go find the healer. And the healer is often very protected because the healer is necessary. So, you got that. If we could pull your layers down to your purest essence, what would we find?
A camera with a lens that's always recording.
Observer.
So give me
Observer.
Capture.
Yeah. Me, I'm always on the wall, but the wall moves everywhere. The room always changes, but I'm always there on that wall. I'm always in the room,
I feel like your personality kind of makes me think of that. It's like, it's magnetic in a point that those who are so comfortable in front of the camera will just just naturally kind of go to you, and those who cannot handle someone as strong as you in their life will just walk around it, and that's fine too, because it's like, they're not meant for that camera, they're not meant to be in front of the camera, they're not meant to be subjects. So I think of that too in your life.
Here's what I get. When you're transitioning from a stage of your life to another, especially if it's spiritual, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Not to you and not to the people around you.
Right.
You will not have the right words to put it together, because there's one thing about people, which my friend told me this and I believe it completely. We tend to go to the extremities before we find our balance. When we're going through this spiritual awakening, we're changing a bunch of shit. A lot of stuff is constantly changing. Perhaps the way you spoke, perhaps the way you wore, like the way you dress, perhaps your thought process, perhaps your beliefs. Everything is changing, and you can't explain to people why, with the exception of, I'm going through a spiritual journey. And they have to sit there and see you change so much that they think it's self-harm.
Yeah.
They think something big is happening. They think something bad is happening. That being said, this spiritual journey is more like an artist on a blank canvas. You never know what the final prize is gonna be. You just have to trust the process.
I love that.
You just have to trust the process. Here's something peculiar about yourself that I've observed. Is either you understand me or you leave.
That's true. You're
That's your
very
motto.
extremist.
That's your motto. Either you
Extremist
understand me
to
or you
the
leave.
heart.
And so the thing is, you can get excited. You should get excited when your camera cap is off and when you're recording and stuff. It's completely fine to get excited to see the information that you're taking in, the scenery that you're giving in. But your thing is, you don't want to get excited because you don't want to get attached, because you're already thinking about detaching. And that's not fair to you, and it's not that fair to people. The thing is, when people come in your life and people actively show you that they care for you and they want you around, you yourself have to decide your boundaries.
Okay.
You yourself have to decide what is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Okay.
However, because you have a big confrontation, a big argument, a big event happen with somebody, that does not necessarily mean you want rid of them completely. Because your relationship with that person, the value that you put in that relationship with that person is not solely on one event.
Yeah,
it's on everything that's happened leading up to this point.
Yeah, the totality.
But the thing is also, look, when people show you that they don't care for your time, one and done. You deserve to allow your relationships to flourish. And shit don't flourish if there's no problems. If you don't have conversations, if you don't have certain arguments in your relationships, they're stagnant. That's just what it is. Because you're a person that's consistently changing.
Yeah,
and
that's
for you to expect everybody to understand your growth immediately is not fair. It's not fair. Like I said, sometimes we have to watch the artist paint, and the painting needs to be finished before we can understand.
Right.
And you, as the artist, need to have that great spirit for yourself, which means that everything that's being said to you as you're painting, you need to reflect on.
Like, I feel like once someone gets the wrong interpretation of your art, you just automatically said, well, then you're not meant to see my art.
Right.
Like,
and that's not.
That's not how that
See,
works.
I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. And that concludes our conversation for the day. But if you are still tuned into this part of the video, that means you stuck it out with us till the very end. And for that, I thank you, thank you, thank you. I also want to send a special shout out to all of my contributors for this dialogue. Shout out to Christina, the host of Jack of All Talks. You can find her podcast on Spotify via the link in the description. Shout out to Jose, whose journal, Just Write It Down, can be purchased on Amazon via the link in the description below. Once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you enjoyed life-changing dialogue, such as what we presented to you today, you don't want to miss what I got coming up for you next. So stay tuned. And that means like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share. In the meantime, in between time, roll the credits.
The first question where we're going to talk about is the last 4 digits of your social security number.
You gotta give yourself time to adjust. And I'm learning how to, give people time to adjust to me, and also like how to adjust to the environment as I change. You just gonna cut me off like that, like I was done?
I thought you were done.
That was the introduction. But I'm gonna give this a grace period because off backs, I'm not gonna go back to who I was to fit in with y'all.
The thing is, no. Kids, they know what they're talking about. Because there was a kid I knew who saw me skinny. Then a couple months ago, she saw me fat. She said, "You're fat now."
talking to people the way you do and the texture of conversation that you have with people, just creating that dialogue out loud is big because you make people reflect on themselves in a way that takes us to another place. Because it's not just like, oh, we talking about this right now. It's like, wow, you make people really look at themselves, you know, one way or another. The things that you ask and the kind of scenarios you present just by being yourself is like, wow, how do we go from here, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, to be in the presence of that, it's like pretty intense. Like 100%, I always ask myself, like, how do high performing people or like personalities and influencers live their lives? Like, what's it like day to day with them? I love behind the scenes, but I'm also like, what is the cameraman thinking when he's processing this individual?
Yeah.
So it's like great to me to see how you process individuals, but it's also so interesting for me to also get to process you. Just to have this level of conversation with you again is really remarkable.
Great.